All right, Lagos, it is 18 minutes going to 5. You are tuned in to Smooth Health here on Smooth 98.1. And as always, on Smooth Health, we talk about your health and how best you can be in tip-top shape, all the tips, tricks, everything else in between that you need to know, especially as you go about your daily lives. We also debunk all those myths that you think you know. Mm-mm. That is why we have Smooth Health here to help you as you journey along on your way to having the best life ever. And joining me this evening to share insights. Oh, I have missed having Dr. Abiola Ajayi. Oh, glad to have you here with me this evening. Yes, yes, yes. The crowd says, yay!
Wild.
Hell. All right. It is a pleasure having you here this evening. And today,
Thank you.
Lagos, we'll be talking about how you need to protect your hearing as well as what you need to be doing to keep safe. You might think, okay, no, I already know that I don't put things in my ear. Is it just that? What else could be affecting your hearing without you actually being conscious or knowing that it's detrimental to your health? As always, I have the kind doctor in the person of Dr. Abiola Ajayi. He's the CEO of ROA Specialist Hospital with me, and he'll be sharing insights as to what you need to do and, hey, the things you need to avoid. And without much ado, I want to first get into this as adults, because as children, we can excuse that to be, or it's the adults that will know how to care for us and all that. But as adults, how often should we get our hearing checked? Some people say, like, there's nothing wrong with my ears. I can hear clearly, but how often should we check it?
Well, thank Joy. Thanks for having me. I love being here.
Our pleasure.
Um, I actually, like to start with the statistics. So in Nigeria, a
Okay.
quarter, a quarter of men and women above the age of 50 will have measurable hearing loss. That's
Oh,
25% of the adults above the age of 50 will have measurable hearing loss. And above the age of 65, one in every three, so a third, will have disabling hearing loss, where the hearing loss really affects, their day-to-day life. So this is not a problem that only affects a few people. This is a problem that affects millions in this country alone. So
oof.
everybody, when we're talking about adults between the age of 18 and 21 should have a baseline hearing test done. So we know where you are baseline if you have any deficiencies then. And then every 3 to 5 years after that, you should, according to WHO, World Health Organization standards, every 3 to 5 years after that, you should get your hearing tested. I had mine tested a couple of years back, let's say about 3 years now, and I was surprised to see how much hearing loss I had. And we'll get
Huh?
into this. We'll get into this as we go along. But I know what caused mine, and
Oh,
I have
okay.
since taken steps to reduce that. Remind me to tell you the story.
I most definitely, I'm curious
I'll share,
because,
I'll share with everybody, but
oh
whenever
my
you're ready.
goodness. I know that there are measurements when it comes to how much we should allow into our ears or the sound around us. But it seems as if we go by the statistics, I'm not trying to say that I'm not trying to generalize, but I think people in Lagos have a hearing problem. I absolutely because the noise levels, oh my days, from how we talk on a regular to it's almost like we can go somewhere else. And I don't, and I might be wrong, but it seems as the minute you step somewhere, they know that you're Nigerian. And
Right.
I don't know if that's even a thing that we should be proud of, but for me, it feels scary that the minute you open your mouth, they know you're Nigerian. They're like, oh, y'all are never quiet. Anyways,
Yeah,
moving away.
when
Okay.
you live in the city that never sleeps, you can have that. And in Nigeria's urban centers, it's
Yeah.
average daytime noise in Nigeria, because I researched this, or
Okay.
average daytime noise is over 85 decibels, and we'll talk about what that means. But anything above 85 decibels is technically too loud.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Mm.
so and that's just normal, like in busy traffic zones and all the cars. We typically exceed safe levels on a daily basis. But I'll let you
Ah,
run the show. I'm just here to answer questions.
it's absolutely interesting how it is you already have the stats, and statistics actually help. So you know it's not just fictitious numbers out there. These are well-researched conversations that we have here on Smooth Health, and thankfully, Dr. Abiola Ajayi is doing great with giving us those data. In case you're wondering, no, it's not just your random data you see out there. No, he carries out his own personal research, and that's why he's able to give the highlights and this exact data that he's sharing. But let's get into the fact that noise is a problem and how much exposure should we be wary of? How much noise exposure
So
should we be wary of?
so let me a lot of people. So the noise is measured on something called a decibel meter. It's just
Right.
or the decibel scale. It's just a standardized way of recording noise. For
Okay.
example, temperature is recorded with Celsius or Fahrenheit,
Mm-hmm.
So noise is recorded with decibels, or it's a dB. And I'll give you a few that I pulled up for this.
Mm-hmm.
Rainfall. If it's raining, moderate rainfall, it's about 40 decibels, 40, right? And remember, I said
Ah,
anything 85 and below is typically safe for an adult. So
right.
moderate rainfall is 40. The
Mm,
other thing we should note is that going from every three change of three is double. So it's not a linear scale. So if I go from 1 decibel to 4 decibels, I've doubled the noise. If I go from 10 decibels to 13 decibels, I've doubled the noise. So it progressively goes. It's
ah,
called logarithmic break. So your shower, let's say your shower with high pressure, that's about 70 decibels, right? Your
okay.
alarm clock could be 80 decibels. Remember, anything less than
Yeah.
85. So alarm clock, that's about 80 decibels. A jet engine is going to be like an airplane, like outside. You always see people working at the airport out with these big, it's because those typically go from 130 decibels and up. And the previous research, anything 100 and above is going to give you hearing loss, depending on how
True.
long you're exposed
You're
to it.
within that.
So exposure is not just the volume or how loud the sound is, but also how long you're exposed to it. So if you go to a concert, any concert you're going to go to is going to
Mm,
be 100 decibels and more. So you know that
mm.
if you expose yourself to that for more than 15 minutes, you will lose some of your hearing. Sometimes people go to concerts and stand right in front of the speaker.
You
That,
don't
let
know
me
how
check
they
my
do
chart
that.
here. That's like 140 decibels. You're like 20 times louder than anything you should be listening to.
Now that's very
And
scary.
yeah, prolonged exposure, like I said, even whether it's from work, traffic, or your
Mm-hmm.
music, it all can cause hearing loss as long as it's loud enough and it's for long. And like I said, I know what caused mine at that time was I like loud stereos in my car, loud stereos in my room. I like to feel the bass. I don't want to hear it. I want my hairs to shake. So and I don't have much hair. I want these small hairs to shake. So but I've now taken measures like there's a way I can adjust my car where it cannot get louder than a certain
It's
level. And I
awesome.
took a meter. I tuned it. So if I put on maximum, it doesn't go above 85. And that's just what I have to deal with for now.
Mm. Okay, so oh my, everyone who does rock and some high level hip hop, you want to be mindful of what you're doing because long term
Mhm.
it has its effect. And I know certain people who's if you put on the system, either at home, at work, wherever it is, they have it at its own full blast, and you're like, how do you how do you get anything done with that kind of noise? But I think there are certain jobs that require you to also be in certain to be able to manage that kind of noise. But
Mhm.
we'll get to that. We'll get to that. And talking about noise, really, is there a link between hearing loss and depression?
Yeah,
I've heard something along those lines.
yeah, it's tied more with anxiety. But
Okay.
it can also oftentimes we clump anxiety and depression together because they can the same things can cause them. But prolonged exposure to traffic, music, whatever it is, prolonged exposure can cause not only damage to your ears but damage to your body because it's stressful. So it raises the stress hormone, one of those being cortisol, so
Mm-hmm.
that about 1 billion young people are at risk for noise-induced hearing loss. And that's exposure. When I say 1 billion, that's 1 billion worldwide will be
Mm-hmm.
experiencing some kind of hearing loss. So by the
Mm-hmm.
time you're having hearing loss, you now can suffer from poor sleep, anxiety maybe because you're not hearing well.
Right.
I talked about even in daytime, just our busy
It's
urban
a
centers
mm-hmm.
exceed. So yes, it can be linked. One, because you can't hear, and two, because of the prolonged cortisol levels. And that can now lead, I think we talked about it before, but on another episode, but that can now lead to high blood pressure, can lead to anxiety, can lead to
Right.
premature aging, and over time, even depression.
There's so much more we need to get into and talk about, especially uh, signs to look out for in case you are indeed hurting yourself with the sound or loud noise you think you're enjoying. But we'll get to all that in a bit. Let's take our first breather for the evening. And when we get back in, we're talking about how your environment could also be the reason why you're having hearing loss or and how you can protect yourself as we go further in the conversation. If I were you, I wouldn't move a muscle. You need to stay here to smooth 98.1. Love music. Love it. I can't wait to get into the conversation about earbuds because a lot of people wear them like it's a badge right now. It's like, oh, it's my new cloth. It's something. How safe really should one? The amount of times I see people just plugging things into their eardrums. Oh,
Hmm.
I feel like it's scary, and it's even a good thing we're having conversation about this because in I believe I might be wrong, but I believe you're supposed to be conscious of your environment, especially
Hmm.
for those who are always on the move, as opposed to always putting things in your ear.
Like earpods, especially. You know.
Yes. But what's the ideal one? Well, let's get into it and talk about it. All right, Lagos. Yes. 32 minutes gone to 5, and you are tuned into Smooth Health here on Smooth 98.1. Today, we're talking about how you can protect your hearing and safety so you aren't going deaf before you realize it. And joining me in helping us understand what we need to do, protect ourselves as best as we can, even in the climes that we live, is Dr. Abiola Ajayi. He's the CEO of ROA Specialist Hospital, and it's a pleasure just having him share this insights, especially talking about hearing. Let's even focus on our environment. I know you said there's a certain measurement, or it's about 85 decibels for you if you're living in a noisy environment. But here's the thing: you have certain areas where you have loudspeakers from religious organizations, and then you also have the ones from those interesting spots. You have your um, your bars, your hotels, and the noise is alarming. They're nowhere close to you, but you can hear everything. How does that affect a person's hearing?
Oh, that's definitely going to affect. So, we talked about the decibel scale, right? So all of those examples that you gave, all of those examples are higher on the decibel scale than what's normal. You have to take steps to protect yourself. So if you're working in a place, you're talking about a patron or a customer going to a club or a nightclub, and maybe they go once a week or, on average. But what about the staff? What about staff that work there?
Right.
Right? The bartenders and the waitresses and even the door guys, they're exposed to that for a long time. And it's sound and hearing loss is dose dependent, meaning the more loud noise you're exposed to, the more
Right.
likely you are to get hearing loss or go deaf with. So if I'm working in that kind of environment, I need to have a way of protecting my hearing. Because you're not going to feel, if you've ever gone to a concert or something and you've left and you hear ringing in your ear, right? You always hear that ringing, and it may last for 30 minutes, it may last for an hour, it may last for 2 hours. You're like, man, that place was lit. Everything was. You have lost some of your hearing. There, once you hear ringing in the ear like that, you have suffered hearing loss. Footstep, right?
Ouch.
It may be 0.5%, it may be 5%. I don't know because each environment is different. But if you're listening to loud music or something and you now have ringing in your ears afterwards, you have suffered some degree of hearing loss. And the nerves that supply your ears, these are called central nerves. So it's central nerve, cranial nerve number 8 goes to the brain and interprets what we hear, the vibrations, and interprets it as sound.
Right.
So if that nerve dies, you're deaf. It's just you can't hear anything. And when you're exposing yourself to that as an 18-year-old, as a 20-year-old, you won't see the hearing loss, the permanent hearing loss until later. Your body will try and cover up and recover and do the ringing. But later on, as you get older now, you'll start to have some signs. And I want to kind of explain to what how it happens because it creeps into your life. You all of a sudden you'll it's not just you wake up one day and you're deaf, or you wake up one day and think that, man, do I have hearing loss? It creeps in so slowly that you don't notice. One of the first things that you'll notice, and I also noticed this in myself, that if right now I'm in my office studio. It's quiet. There's nobody else in here. I can hear everybody just fine. But if I'm in the middle of a loud environment, a noisy environment, people talking around you, it's hard. It can be hard to sometimes pick out the speech of the person that you're talking to. So you're constantly saying, "Oh, what'd you say? Or what'd you say? Repeat." So if you find yourself asking people to repeat themselves when you're in a noisy environment, much more than when you're
In
not,
quiet.
more than likely, it has already started, right? And that was the
Ouch.
first thing I noticed. If I'm not if I wasn't focused and I wasn't maybe sometimes and another thing we do, we look at lips. So we look at
Yes.
people's lips as they're talking, and our
Right.
brain is feeling it. Our brain can do hundreds
Oh,
of
wow.
trillions of calculations a second, right? So your brain is looking at the mouth, piecing into little bits that it's getting from the ear, and
Right.
you're now formulating what you think you heard. So we watch lips, we ask people to repeat themselves. We've already had some permanent hearing loss, and most hearing loss is permanent. Most hearing loss is permanent. So if you notice that you know, have some of these symptoms that I just mentioned, you need to protect the hearing that you have left. And there only recently did a surgery come out to try to help deaf people. It's called a cochlear implant. So they remove the middle portion of your ear and replace it with an electronic device. And yeah, they work for some people, but they don't work for all. And you can imagine that's an extremely expensive piece of hardware. So it's
Oh,
something that you
oh,
want
oh,
to,
definitely.
yeah.
Naturally, hearing aids are expensive, and then you think you are trying to correct something, and
Yeah. I,
oh
I
dear.
would I told somebody the other day to expect about 40,000 US dollars to do it for both here. Yeah, it's a lot of money. If I do the calculation, we're in the
I
the
know.
billions, I think. I mean,
Mm.
$40,000 is a lot of money anywhere. It's a lot of dollars. It's a lot of naira. So
Protect your
yeah,
health.
that's 60 million. Yeah. So um to do a surgery that's not 100%. It's got good success, but it's not 100%. So you need to protect the hearing that you have. You have buzzing in your ears. You're asking people to repeat themselves. It's hard to hear the person you're talking to when you're in a noisy environment. You need an ear test, or it's called audiometry, a hearing test.
Okay, now that we know that, oh goodness, that's just scary. Having to cough up 60 million just to fix your hearing is a problem. But so we don't get to that point, and this is something I've seen a lot of people do. So we like to listen to music, or like me who's in the studio, so I always have to have my headphones on and all that. How does that affect our hearing long term? I know that they're short term and long term. Can we start from the short term and see how it also affects a person long term, especially with constant putting things in the ears, with their airboards, and thinking, oh, it's a fashion statement. Should we even be doing that?
Yeah, so I keep giving the number 85 decibels. 85 decibels is not the maximum. Those earbuds can go 100 plus. And so one of the what I call layman's rule of thumb is that if somebody next to you can hear what you're playing on your headphones or your earbuds, it's too
Right.
loud. It's too loud because the earbuds and headphones are directed to sound is like a wave. It's a pressure wave. You can kill somebody with sound loud enough. And the American military even has some it's called an LRAD, long range acoustic device. Just sound waves, and these are like subsonic, so you can't hear them. But sound wave, they can direct that at a crowd of people, and you'll see the crowd will part like Moses parted the sea. Yeah, because it hits you, you instantly get nauseated. Stay there long enough, bad things can happen. And nobody around is hearing anything unless you're a dog or a cat. So it's really important that somebody can hear it next to you. Nowadays, a lot of the newer phones, you can find an app or so, and it can show you what the decibel levels are. If you're going to be listening for 8 hours a day on your headset, you just have it in there. You want to be at 70 decibels or less. For when I say 85, I'm talking about less than 8 hours a day, and that's still the threshold. But most of these young people are listening to it at about 100. So within 15 minutes of listening to music or anything that loud, you start suffering hearing loss. So, so get the app, check it on your phone, and
Right.
make sure that people next to you cannot hear anything. Then you may be in a safer range than
But
before.
it's
You know,
actually harder because we're trying to drown out everyone. We want to, especially if you're listening to something that you want to enjoy, maybe a movie, and you're in a public environment and you just fixated. You don't want all that distraction. It just feels like, oh my days, I need to
I I
increase the
I get I
volumes.
get I get that. I understand that. So I would tell people, remember, we talked about 60 million to do surgery to correct your hearing. I would invest a tiny fraction of that into noise canceling headphones or earbuds, so that you
Ah,
now do not have to turn the volume up so loud to get the same experience. So you're trying to turn the volume louder than the background noise so you can hear the movie or the music that you're watching. There are earpods that will do, and I switched to all of it. I'm trying to protect my hearing. I don't want to have an hearing aid or have surgery, so I'm really protected. So now when you use that, it has an electronic chip. It analyzes sounds on the outside, and it
oh my God.
creates a sound opposite of that to cancel it out. The sound is just a sound wave. And it directs that, it's not directing that into your ear. So now, if you had to have your volume on 10 just to hear, more likely you can hear probably on 5 or on 6, and those would be safer
Mm.
levels. So I would
Because
I
I,
would advise everyone get real electronic noise canceling earbuds and turn it down.
okay.
Untreated hearing loss can lead to anxiety, social withdrawal, then depression. If you lose one of your senses, it's not like in a movie where you just like, oh, all my other senses get so much better. I turn into a superhero. No, you're not a superhero. You can't see through
Right.
walls. Yeah, we can't see through walls. You're going to be miserable, and you're gonna withdraw. You know, your friends make fun of you, like, oh, that you can't hear. You always say, well, what, huh, what? You start slowly withdrawing, and then you can become depressed. And depressed people can commit suicide. I mean, you really don't know that. Oh, me listening to loud music for 10 years of my life now caused me to commit suicide later on down the road. It's possible. It is possible. I don't wish that on anybody.
Absolutely not. So, what should okay, so I know that we need to minimize whatever it is we can, but what are the situations where we can, in the instances where we're living in environments where it's extremely loud? How can one now protect themselves from such loud noise?
So if I'm working in that kind of environment, the best thing is what they use at the airport. Big, they're larger than what you're wearing now, big over the head, and they're made to cancel out and seal out noise. So if you're working at an airport without that, I would say you'd have to, I mean, outside on the tarmac by the airplanes,
Right,
you,
right.
you you have to have that, it's
Those
it's like
on.
barrier plus there's foam and cushions and everything. But sometimes people working in a factory may be exposed to loud
Right.
noise, somebody's banging, banging, banging. And if you can't, practically have something that large, then remember we talked about noise canceling earbuds that
You
completely
can just
occlude
put.
your right now. A good pair of noise canceling earbuds may cost you 70,000 naira. I mean, a good pair, a good
I
pair.
get it.
And
I
so
get
some people are gonna be like,
it.
"Hey, man, I can't pay 70K for it for." So, and I understand that. So you just get the best protection that you can. They are silicone. Silicone is the next best thing. Silicone earplugs. The silicone is like a rubber like
Rubber,
gel.
yeah.
Yeah, what the little rubber on your earbuds is made of, that's silicone. So it's like a plug that plugs this off. So that's the next best thing. And then, maybe a good set of those would be somewhere between 10 and 20K. If you get custom ones, maybe 25, 30K. But then if that sounds like a lot. They have foam earplugs, just made of squishy foam. You just take them and you push them in. They're not as effective as the other ones, but they're also not as expensive. So remember what I said, if you can drop your decibels from 80, um, if you drop your decibels by just three, right? If you
Yes.
go from, let's say, 95 to 92, you have cut your risk in half. You have cut your risk in half. So I want people to know that decibel scale is not linear. So if you can just get 3 decibels down, you've cut your risk of hearing loss in half. So foam, silicone, earbuds, over the head, um, those are all practical things when you know you cannot change your job. If you come home regularly with tinnitus or tinnitus, however you want to pronounce it, which is a ringing in the ear or a buzzing in
Right.
the ear, you know that your work environment is too loud. And
Mm.
if you're watching this or you're hearing this and you're having concerns, check on your app, whether it's Google Play or Apple Store, and look for a decibel meter. They're free apps, and next time you're at work, just see what your peaks are, and then it should give you peak and give you average. I wish I had downloaded one before I was in surgery, but it should give you peaks and average. So you don't
Yes.
want you don't want peak to last for over 15 minutes at over 85 decibels. You're in trouble. Your body can withstand occasional peaks here and there, but it should not last for more than 30 seconds at a time.
Mm.
You want to stay, if you can stay between the 70 and 85 range maximum, then you're doing great. You're
Okay.
doing
I need to ask this because yeah, I'm almost out of time. So for older people, before we get to that point, right? What should we be doing? Are there like because everybody, well, I won't say everybody, most people usually say to protect yourself, you have things you can eat, you have to also watch your diet. Are there things associated like meals, uh, um, or health plans or things that can actually protect one's hearing going forward? For the eyes, you always say, oh, eat this, eat that. For the bones, you hear that. But are there things we can also eat to help our hearing aid?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I was still going to repeat myself. The number one thing is protect the hearing that you have. So earplugs, earbuds that are noise canceling, not trying to make it louder than what's behind you.
Mhm.
Try and protect the things that you have. If you have diabetes, That's a common problem of diabetes, that it affects all the nerves in your body, and it can affect those nerves too. You need to control your blood sugar. Your fasting blood sugars should be well controlled. If you have long periods of time where they're not well controlled, then you're at risk for not only deafness but a whole host
A lot of
of
things.
other things. So we've found out that people that have a high sugar and high carbohydrate diet have higher levels of inflammation. And inflammation is the enemy. Inflammation can cause cancer. Inflammation can cause nerve damage and hearing loss. If so, you want to reduce carbs, reduce sugar. You're going to hear me say that about a lot of things because inflammation affects the entire body. I just ate lunch. I ate two pieces of chicken, three pieces of chicken. That's it. Had a
Skinless,
chicken burger,
skinless
took the
chicken
buns
though.
off. Had a chicken burger. I took the buns off, just ate the
Okay.
chicken in the middle, and threw the buns away. Oh wait, why am I doing that? Because I'm trying to reduce inflammation any way I can.
The life of everyone out there right now is in their hands. As long as you know you're eating right, you're also exercising, staying away from things that wouldn't make you go deaf before yeah, before you get older. Those are important things. However, this is where we have to draw a curtain today on Smooth Health. But how can people reach out to you, Dr. Ajayi, for other questions that they might have
Yeah, I
pertaining?
love interacting with patients with all my free time. If you check socials, ROA Specialist Hospital, Facebook, Instagram, X,
TikTok.
YouTube, TikTok. I'm on TikTok. Whatever your favorite one is. And I have a
Mhm.
social media person, so if you send messages and I don't see them, they'll like
They'll
forward
always
them to me.
remember.
Or you can send me a message or call 90913 579 5108. That's my phone number. I don't mind calls as long as they're within a reasonable time, and then I can
Definitely.
point you in the right direction or organize a way to help you with whatever. If it's hearing, fine. If it's something else, we can also talk about that too.
All
ROA
right.
Specialist Hospital and 90913 579 5108.
Okie
Thank,
doke.
thank
All
you
right,
very much.
Lagos. It's been an interesting session, and I hope you've learned a thing or two. Thank you so much, Dr. Ajay, for your time. I know you have a lot waiting on your plate, so I'll say
Just a little.
adios. Have a good